Good morning. Welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. We are so happy that you've chosen this YouTube channel, this Sabbath, this sanctuary and time. We know that you have so many options on Sunday morning, and that you choose to be here is something that we celebrate. We extend an especially warm welcome to our visitors and anyone who may be watching our service online for the first time. Please complete our Get in Touch online form by clicking the link below in our video description. I also like to give a warm welcome to our Reverend Jill Jarvis, who's come this morning to preach for us. And we now invite everyone to greet each other in any way you possibly can. Elbows, if you're here. And if you're joining us online, please say hi to the chat line.
It is good to be together. Good morning, SMUUCh. Today there are just a few announcements. First, Reverend Rose is under the weather, though she is on the mend. Her colleague, Reverend Jill Jarvis, has generously offered to step in at the last minute. Jill was the minister at the UU Fellowship of Lawrence for 12 years and has preached here before. Now she's semi-retired, living half-time in the States and half-time in France with her husband. Good going, Jill. Jill has a special sensitivity to COVID, so she'll be skipping the receiving line and coffee hour after the service, and we are wearing masks for her protection up here while she's here. Reverend Rose will be back next week. And now some announcements from Jen Lacey.
Good morning. Firstly, we would like to invite youth families to help provide a meal for our Project 1020 guests this Wednesday, February 1st. It will be a great opportunity for our young people to be a part of the work of the church. We will begin food prep in the church kitchen at 4:30, with the meal needing to be ready at 5:30. Here are ways you can help. Bring your family to help prepare and deliver the food. Stay to help serve the meal. Contribute money to help cover the cost of ingredients, or make and bring a dessert from home. Normal Wednesday night programming will take place afterwards. Please let me or Kevin Roberts know if you're interested in participating. Secondly, everyone is invited to the Love and Liberation Talentless Dinner and Show from 5:30 to 8 on Wednesday, February 15th. We invite you to share a poem, short story, comedy routine, film short, a visual art, or musical piece, or something else that honors love and liberation. Not feeling talented enough to participate? That's okay. This is a talentless show where we are celebrating the process and not perfection. Because guess what? No one is perfect in how they love others and engage in liberatory work. We hope to create a lineup of both youth and adults whose words, songs, and visuals will inspire us all to keep learning how to show up, to love and show up, to end all forms of oppression. We are in need of more adults. I know we have many poets, musicians, and artists in our congregation. Feel free to create something new or share someone else's creation that inspires you. If you have planned to attend the dinner beforehand, please RSVP on Realm so we have enough food. If you would like to participate in the show, there is a Google sign-up form on, you can find it in the newsletter, Realm, or Facebook. And in honor of Black History Month, we will take a collection for Donate the Plate that will be given to a local anti-racism organization selected by our youth. And lastly, if you are planning to attend the first Restorative Practices workshop today, we will begin promptly at 12 p.m. in the multipurpose choir room, just down the hallway on the right. Lunch will be set up for participants after the service, so feel free to go in there beforehand. Thank you.
In these days, separated into before and after, we learn to live between ways of being and knowing. Held in the waiting of winter where we know all plans and predictions are partial, and where we learn to pivot as a spiritual practice. For us, gathering like this, for this hour, it is a way to mark time, to know ourselves here, now, straddling worlds, maybe for our whole lives. Here we revel in curiosity and let the learning wash over us. Here we refuse to be seduced by certainty. Here we praise the mystery. Here we give thanks for all that remains hidden in this liminal time, all that grows beneath the earth and behind the stars, beyond our view, beyond our lifetime. Let us know ourselves as sowers of seed, tenders of possibility, called to presence and partnership beyond our imaginations. We remember our promise to stay in relationship, to repair what has been broken, to do more than just survive, to insist on joy, and to lead in love. Come, let us worship together. Would you please rise in a moment in body or spirit for hymn number 136, Where Gentle Tides Go Rolling By. But first, the choir will sing the first verse through once.
Could we have Andre come up to help light our chalice this morning?
Love is the
Doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in the fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Each month, we as a community take time to reflect on a theme. The children do this in their classes, and we do it here in worship and in our small groups. This month, the theme is Finding Our Center. A couple of weeks ago, I was able to share my thoughts on this topic with you, so consider what I'm about to say as part 2 of a reflection on finding your center. This part is about situating yourself in time. I have, of late, experienced some deep and powerful feelings about my place in time. Not historical time, or time of year, or time of day, but time of life. Next year, I will turn 70. 70. How the hell did that happen? I certainly don't feel it, and when I look in the mirror, I don't see a 70-year-old man looking back. And yet, I do feel that I'm slowing down a little bit. I get out of bed a little bit later. I only recognize about half of the celebrities listed in the notable birthdays section of the newspaper, the celebrities who are over 50. I make, and Kevin, my husband, can confirm this, I do make funny, soft grunting sounds when I stand up from a chair or get out of a car. People I love are passing away, and I am now the senior member of my immediate family. And several of my contemporaries are facing what I think of as the thing. The thing comes to every one of us, no exceptions. Sometimes, sadly, it arrives early in life, or even before life has even begun. But for many of us, it arrives when we are older. We can ignore the thing, we can deny it, we can even fight it, but we cannot stop it. The thing is that ultimate injury, that disease or diagnosis, that general wearing out that comes to us, beats the crap out of us, and eventually whispers in our ear, "You are mortal, and your time is up." Are you depressed yet? I don't mean to depress you, but these are the thoughts I have been thinking of late. This is what's going on behind my smile. When I think of the thing and life in general, I imagine waves on the ocean, and my metaphorical mind creates the image of life as an ocean wave and me and you and all of us as surfers, riding the wave of our life on our brightly colored and slightly battered surfboards. Waves are primordial, meaning that they have existed since the beginning of time. Waves are in constant motion. Sometimes they are turbulent, sometimes they peter out and you have to wait for the next one. Some waves can travel thousands of miles, others just a short distance. Some waves eventually crash on the rocky cliffs. Others wash up on soft, sandy beaches, created over thousands of years by those other waves crashing on the rocky cliffs. Now, I am not a surfer. I live about as far away from an ocean as one can possibly live in the continental United States. I have never surfed in my life, and I'm not at all interested in even learning how to surf. But hey, it's my metaphor, and I've got the podium. So I can make this stuff up as I go along. Have you ever watched a skilled surfer in action? They don't just stand there on the board. They spread their arms, they wobble about, they keep their knees bent so they can absorb the shock of the smaller, wavelets that they encounter on their ride. They move forward and backward to go faster or slower, though I don't know which causes which. They lean left or right to avoid that white foamy stuff at the very top of the wave that looks soft but can really clobber you, or to enter the tunnel or the tube that the wave creates as it rolls over on itself, and emerge again. A skilled surfer can't control the wave itself, but succeeds by gracefully adjusting their position on the wave. But skilled surfers can't focus all of their attention on the surfboard alone. No, they must also be constantly aware of their surroundings. The ocean has many hidden hazards. There are underwater rocks, floating debris, sudden storms, whirlpools, sharks, and other hazards. But the ocean also offers great beauty for the surfer to enjoy. Glorious sunrises and sunsets, wondrous sea creatures and birds in the sky, beautiful tropical islands, shooting stars, rainbows. An unskilled surfer can miss these too if they give all their attention to the board. An unskilled surfer too focused on the board may also miss companion surfers that join them on the wave. We pick them up as we ride our wave. Some leave in search of a grander wave. Others we simply lose along the way. So how does one become a skillful surfer? Well, I'll tell you. Remember, it's my metaphor. First, the surfer must realize that the goal is not to be one with the board, but to be one with the water, to be one with the wave. To be one with the wave, the surfer must respect its power, know that he is powerless to alter it, and, like one skilled in martial arts, use that power to his advantage. Next, the surfer must move with calmness and grace, maintain balance at all times, and avoid stiffness and rigidity as he dances on the board. Finally, the surfer must understand clearly that the journey of the wave will come to an end, one that hopefully won't be too painful. Like I said, I have never surfed and probably never will, but I can use what I know about surfing, whether it's actually true or not, as I situate myself in time. This life of mine, this wave, may I ride it with grace and skill as long as I am able. May I skillfully avoid hazards, hidden or unhidden. May I never miss noticing the sunsets, the rainbows, the beautiful tropical islands. And when I can no longer do my graceful dance on the board, may I sit down on it and simply enjoy the ride, letting me and my board move with the wave wherever the wave takes us, however fast or slow, until we crash into a rocky cliff or land softly on a sandy beach. That is what I wish for. However, I realize there's a very good possibility that when the thing comes to me, I'll simply freak out. Thank you.
invite all the children to join me at the front. All right, today I learned is Kansas Day, and we are going to honor the history of Kansas. Kansas Day is new to me, being from Missouri, and I don't know that anyone celebrates a Missouri Day, so I'm happy to be here. While many people probably celebrate more recent human history on Kansas Day, we are going way, way back to prehistoric times. Does anyone know what a paleontologist does? Andre?
I think it's,
It's okay. A paleontologist is a scientist who studies the history of life on Earth by studying the fossil record. This usually means that they do a lot of digging to uncover artifacts. I did some digging on Wikipedia, and I learned that Kansas, as we know it today, was once covered by a shallow sea known as the Western Interior Sea. You can see it up there. When paleontologists search for fossils in Kansas, they find lots of prehistoric sea creatures like this 14-foot-long fish, or as you may know it, the fish within a fish in Hays, Kansas. So the big one is 14 foot, and I think the smaller one is about 6 feet. It's hard to wrap your mind around a fish that big. And I brought some smaller fossils with me today. You can look at them. See if you can find the fossils in these rocks. You can pick them up and look at them. See if you can find the fossils. When I was your age, my parents would take me to the river, and we would collect rocks. And I remember the first time I found a crinoid fossil. You have probably seen these before. They are common fossils in Kansas. But it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I learned that the fossil was not complete, only a stem. And this organism was not a plant, but an ancient flower-like starfish that lived nearly 500 million years ago. Let's close our eyes for a moment and imagine what this place might have looked like 500 million years ago when giant fish and flower-like sea creatures occupied this place. There were no buildings, no roads, no schools, no churches, no humans. It's interesting to think about this place being covered by water and sea creatures. But let's also think about the future for a moment. Let's imagine it's a few thousand years into the future. This building, this sanctuary are long gone, worn down with age. And there are scientists who want to learn about the history of this place and the people, like you and me, who shared it. So they do some digging. What do you think they would find here? Probably a lot of chalices and coffee mugs. Maybe the remains of plants and animals that once shared space in the prairie. Maybe some canned goods would be left behind from the food pantry. Would they find mostly natural materials or lots of plastic? What would we want them to find? What story would these objects tell about who we were and what we valued? So children, what might they find in the future when they're digging in the grounds that would suggest that we cared about the earth? Can you think of anything? It's okay, we can just keep thinking about it. Yeah, I probably glitter. Yep. Actually, there's a room in this church where there's a lot of glitter in some carpet. I love that. Yeah, do you have something? What? Yeah. Uh-huh. There would be a lot of evidence that there were people here. Yeah, they'd find some fossils. And to the adults, what might they find that would suggest that we were fighting climate change and social injustices? What do we want to leave behind that will tell a story that we cared about the earth and the people that would come after us? As we celebrate Kansas Day, may we remember that we too are a part of Kansas history. So what do we want to be true about the legacy that we leave behind? Thank you. At this time, please join me in singing the children out to their classrooms.
Doesn't the choir sound great? And I hear they're accepting new members. Auditions not required. Let us take a moment to come fully into this place. Put your feet flat on the floor. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable and relax in your chair. Allow your breathing to deepen beautifully. Wiggle your jaw, loosen your shoulders, melt. Notice an area that's tense or tight and embrace it and say, relax. It's okay to relax. Let the bustle of getting here melt away and come into this space of holiness. Now reach over to the person sitting next to you if their head is nodding and nudge them softly. We are here together, gathered in peace and authenticity and intention. We come to this place to see and to be seen, to teach and to be taught, to hear and to be heard. You may open your eyes. We come to this place to share our joys and sorrows. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, I now invite you to come forward and light a candle. You can share what's in your heart or on your mind in 1 or 2 sentences. You can share with a single word, or you can share in silence and simply light the candle.
On the 26th, a dear friend and mentor passed away. Jerry Meadall had been very influential in men's work and in anger and recognizing its causes. And I light a candle of remembrance for him.
I light these remaining candles for the joys and sorrows unspoken today, resting in the silent sanctuary of our heart. Please speak these words with me. We hear your words. We witness your life. It is all its heaven and all brilliance. And we carry your joys and sorrows in a shared heart. Let us sit peacefully in a moment of silence as we contemplate the passage of time. Let us relish this moment of quiet. The moment is gone too soon. Our reading today is called Passover Remembered by Alla Bozarth Campbell. Pack nothing. Bring only your determination to serve and your willingness to be free. Don't wait for the bread to rise. Take nourishment for the journey, but eat standing. Be ready to move at a moment's notice. Do not hesitate to leave your old ways behind. Fear, silence, submission. Do not take time to explain to the neighbors. Tell only a few trusted friends and family members. Then begin quickly before you have time to sink back into that old slavery. Set out in the dark. I will send fire to warm and encourage you. I will be with you in the fire, and I will be with you in the cloud. You will learn to eat new food and find refuge in new places. I will give you dreams in the desert to guide you safely home to that place you have not yet seen. The stories you tell one another around your fires in the dark will make you strong and wise. Outsiders will attack you, some will follow you, and at times you will weary and turn on each other from fear and fatigue and blind forgetfulness. You have been preparing for this for hundreds of years. I am sending you into the wilderness to make a way and to learn my ways more deeply. Those who fight you will teach you. Those who fear you will strengthen you. Those who follow you, you may forget you. Only be faithful. This alone matters. Some of you will die in the desert, for the way is longer than anyone imagined. Some of you will give birth. Some will join other tribes along the way, and some will simply stop and create new families in a welcoming oasis. Some of you will be so changed by weathers and wanderings that even your closest friends will have to learn your features as though for the first time. Some of you will not change at all. Sing songs as you go and hold close together. You may at times grow confused and lose your way. Continue to call each other by the names I've given you to help remember who you are. You will get where you are going by remembering who you are. Tell your children lest they forget and fall into danger. Remind them even they were not born in freedom, but under a bondage they no longer remember, which is still with them if unseen. So long ago you fell into slavery, slipped into it unaware out of hunger and need. Do not let your children sleep through the journey's hardship. Keep them awake and walking on their own feet so that you both remain strong and on course. So you will be only the first of many waves of deliverance on these desert seas. Do not go back. I am with you now, and I am waiting for you.
I'm privileged to be here this morning while Reverend Rose is resting and recovering. And it's good to lead worship with you all again. It's been several years since I've been here, and that feels like almost another lifetime ago. The world is so different now than it was just a few years ago. And I understand that today you're celebrating Kansas Day, so I thought it might be appropriate to reflect on remembering the past and how we do that. Does anyone remember the stand-up comedian Stephen Wright? Because I think he was popular in the mid-'80s. Wikipedia describes him as characterized by a distinctly lethargic voice with a slow, deadpan delivery of ironic, philosophical, and sometimes nonsensical jokes. Mostly an acquired taste, I think. But my husband and I laughed out loud at some of his one-liners. This was one of our favorites. Whenever I think of the past, it just brings back so many memories. You have to let it sink in. We've just passed the time of year that's a time of thinking of the past and looking forward to the future. Besides the calendar year coming to an end, the holidays especially are a time of nostalgia, with all the familiar sights and sounds and smells and foods and rituals, bringing back memories of time spent with family and friends. Now, we don't all have those memories, and when we do, they're not always good memories, but they're often particularly intense during the December holidays. When the world is the way our world is today, a world of rapid change, confusion, loss, maybe even dread, a common reaction is to look back with longing toward what we remember as simpler times, especially collectively with our family or our friends of the same generation. That nostalgia can be a powerful attraction, has certainly not been lost on the marketing folks. It's become big business, like 60s band reunion tours, television shows set in times of living memory, at least for some of us, mid-century furniture and fashion, retro everything. Well, fun or comforting nostalgia is often bittersweet because we're remembering the good times of our lives, but there's also a sadness in the absolute knowing that we can never get them back. Ironically, the actual concept of nostalgia and the word are fairly recent. And nostalgia began in quite a different way than with the warm fuzzies we usually associate with it. It started by being designated a life-threatening disease. In the late 1600s, a medical student, Johannes Hover, became intrigued by reports of a strange disease infecting Swiss mercenaries stationed in the Alps. Far from their homes, longing for home-cooked meals, families, normal lives, they suffered from what was described as an intense, inconsolable form of homesickness. Well, I don't know, that doesn't seem strange to me, but it was said that for lack of an effective treatment, many died. So Hover wrote his dissertation on this syndrome, and he named it for the Greek words nostos, homecoming, and algos, sorrow or despair. Furthermore, he concluded that the only life-saving treatment was to send the patient home. The military concluded there must be more practical solutions. Historical commentaries cite the example of a Russian general marching his army to Germany in 1733, telling his troops that the first one to come down with the nostalgia virus would be buried alive. And this treatment proved remarkably effective. Other solutions tried over the years included leeches, purging the stomach, and something I think we don't really need to know about described as warm hypnotic emulsions. Still, on numerous soldiers' death certificates all the way through the Civil War and into the late 19th century, the cause of death was listed as nostalgia. Well, Paul McCartney wasn't wrong. What a temptation it can be to believe in yesterday, when all our troubles seemed so far away, and when it looks as though, indeed, now they're here to stay. A common and powerful form of nostalgia depends on what American historian Christopher Lasch called the disparagement of the present. Feeling out of control and even repulsed by modern life, feeling anxious about the future. We look to the past, where the world was still in order. You know, where everyone knew their place and was satisfied with it, where school children still walked barefoot in the snow uphill to school, where those schools still taught cursive, where no one used those words in polite company. And you can probably fill in the blank with the most cringeworthy such grievance you frequently hear, or your own favorite reminiscence you grumpily bestow on younger people. Mine would probably be the school year starting in mid-August. What is that about? In my day, it started later and after Labor Day, which only makes sense. What is the world coming to? And this sort of nostalgia is hard to resist. It so often evokes a sense of collective identity, community, shared purpose, ideals and values held in common, all of which we'd hope to do as a nation or as a denomination, as a congregation, creating beloved community. But to invoke an idealized past to replace a disturbing present and forestall an imagined anxiety-producing future in the name of building community is dangerous. Let me give you a most obvious example. Make America Great Again. In 2016, half of respondents in the annual American Values Survey agreed that the country's best days were behind us. And 60% of Americans believed their children would be worse off than they were. Unsurprisingly, these sentiments were far greater among white Americans than Black, Latinx, and other minorities. Russian-American artist and cultural theorist Svetlana Boyne refers to this as restorative nostalgia. It seeks to restore life the way we were. It thinks of itself not as nostalgia, but as truth and tradition. And she believes it always contains an element of conspiracy theory. Someone, some group is plotting to change life as we've always known and loved it for their own nefarious ends, and it's up to the good guys to stop them and restore what was good and true. I really chose the low-hanging fruit in using the example on the political right of making America Great Again, but consider, as we think about this, that restorative nostalgia operates on the political, cultural, and religious left as well. It's a human thing. I'm thinking about how truth and tradition, this is the way we've always done it, reactions also rise among liberals around how we address issues of, for example, free speech, policing, institutional racism, gender fluidity, the Constitution, language, the list is long. But there are at least two problems. First, our memories are not faithful. We too often idealize the past, forgetting the bad parts, distorting even our own limited perspectives. And when we invoke an idealized past in the name of the collective, the American dream, who's telling those stories? Who's being erased? Nostalgia for a past greatness dismisses too many voices. It ignores too many experiences. It fails to acknowledge or doesn't even know huge parts of the story. There's a movement currently gaining a lot of attention on what's called the New Right. Tucker Carlson likes to promote it on Fox News. So I hear. It claims that feminism was not a step forward in history and that masculine stereotypes that we currently associate with toxic masculinity are actually healthy for society, and beneficial to women. They claim that feminism has not worked for women who really want to be dependent on and protected by men. So the restoration of so-called traditional gender roles, white middle class 1950s gender roles, is the solution. This movement features women who ostensibly used to be liberal, but now are quitting their jobs, marrying young, having lots of children, with their husbands heading the family. And now, lest you think that this is presented as just another valid life choice, because it certainly is that, that's not what this restorative movement is fundamentally about. Its point is rather that all this choice we've been offered makes our lives worse. True liberation is not having to choose like it used to be. It's as though all the lessons of the past have been forgotten, as though Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique had never awakened a generation. People who didn't live through it, whose parents didn't live through it, are being offered a vision of life as it never existed. And such is the power and danger of restorative nostalgia. The past cannot be recreated. Neither must it be forgotten. Black lesbian womanist American writer Audre Lorde wrote, "The past is teeming with lost reality, some of which may be helpful in working towards a present that can breed futures." I want you to hear this again. The past is teeming with lost reality, some of which may be helpful in working towards a present that can breed futures. We can connect to past generations with a reflective nostalgia, where we find elements of value that can be tweaked, updated, customized, adapted, and used to cope with the turmoil and the conflict created by change, in the expectation that our descendants will learn valuable lessons about how we shaped our future and their present. Beware of a nostalgia that seduces us into believing that it's possible to escape the losses and the challenges of the present by restoring a comfortable and familiar past. If escape is seen as possible, then collective action to change becomes unnecessary. It becomes impossible. So returning to that movement to restore traditional gender roles, the problems its proponents blame on our liberation, or our sort of liberation, from those roles, those problems are real. They didn't make those up. A lot of young people are living them and struggling to find solutions. Leaders of this restorative movement, who I cynically note are mostly white, straight men, vocally blame liberation itself for women being exhausted because they try to have it all and can't, for being condemned to struggle financially and emotionally because men no longer have to protect and support their families, having to parent alone because we've made divorce too easy. Well, give me a break. The real problem is our uber capitalistic system with an almost non-existent social safety net that can't even mandate a living wage or paid parental leave or childcare, an entrenched system where most women can't have it all because if one parent in a mixed-sex relationship has to stay home, it's usually not the man who's making more money and who will most suffer career consequences for taking vacations and personal leave for a sick kid, or taking elderly parents to medical appointments. Giving people no choice but to restore the gender roles of the 1950s American white middle class deliberately does not address the real problems. It does distract people from demanding that corporate America, institutions, and governments step up and work together for systemic change to support all families. Likewise, the rush to restore a past normalcy, unsuited to a fundamentally altered present, can be dangerous in itself. A letter recently published by my favorite advice columnist, written by who is Carolyn Hacks in the Washington Post, made me wonder whether to laugh or cry, though my first reaction was to cringe. A woman wrote that she and her husband are torn over his mother, who insists on living a very strange life. It seems that mother-in-law has become reclusive, mostly in the last 3 years. Oh, she goes to the grocery store and to the hair salon, but she mostly refuses visitors. She won't attend family reunions and sometimes insists on speaking with her family through a window. She's appalled that people have resumed going about their business without masks, and she's 86 years old. So the writer asked, "Do you think she needs an intervention?" Ms. Hacks listed all the reasons why the mother-in-law clearly does not need an intervention, that her pandemic strategies might be why she's almost 90, and most significantly added, she's not wrong about the masks since they didn't stop being helpful. Generally speaking, we collectively declared them more annoying than they're worth to us now and left the medically vulnerable to fend for themselves. The COVID pandemic has put a glaring spotlight on our national obsession with individual liberty over the common good. Hundreds of thousands have died as a result, and deaths continue to mount, especially among the elderly. And for the first few months, if you remember, the national conversation addressed precautionary measures in terms of herd immunity, stopping the spread and protecting the community. Then came the major political and cultural backlash, which eventually won the day. Since then, nearly everyone, it seems, the CDC, the government, institutional leaders, medical experts, the media, now pretend that we can all return to normal. And when there are dangerous surges, as there are occasionally still in much of the country, the advice, if you choose to seek it out, because you have to seek it out, is this: make your own individual risk assessment based on your own risk factors and your personal risk tolerance, right? Except possibly for Carolyn Hacks. No one seems to be acknowledging our collective decision to leave the vulnerable to fend for themselves, even though it means they may have to fend by themselves. It's but the latest iteration of a deeply entrenched American worship of personal freedom. And we can choose to name that and work together to address it, or we can let it remain the elephant in the room and choose the easier route of restoring a semblance of normalcy, but not for everyone. Imagine. You may say I'm a dreamer, but imagine with me, if you will, what the foreseeable future of Unitarian Universalism might look like. Now, right now, we're in the midst of engaging our past. The lessons learned, the lessons never learned, the lessons learned and forgotten. And we're being called as a vital liberal religion with a living tradition to respond to challenges we couldn't have imagined a mere 10 years ago. Not with a nostalgia that strives to restore the past Unitarian Universalism that we've known and loved, but with a reflective nostalgia that engenders a realistic and critical view of what has been. A nostalgia that adapts the most loving and enlightened and inclusive aspect of what's gone before to carry us beyond the present and into an uncommonly mysterious future. When I first became UU, soon after I joined All Souls in Kansas City in 1990, I joined the Racial Justice Committee. Almost 10 years later, I went to seminary where a focus had been established on anti-racism, anti-oppression, multiculturalism as a foundational value of our religion, to which we were expected and required to hold ourselves accountable. Now in 2023, as I've continued to be engaged with this work, I can assure you it looks very different than it did then. It wasn't easy to widen and fundamentally change my anti-racism perspective after I thought I already knew it all, more than once. And I'm excited to be part of Unitarian Universalism's commitment to this work of living into our values, even as I know it will never be easy. But easy is not one of our principles. Speaking of which, you may be aware that something big has been happening with our principles, which are listed in Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. This is the foundation work for all of the UUA and its member congregations and its covenantal communities. It's the covenant they pledge themselves to when they become members of the UUA. We're required as UUs to review this article, our principles and sources, every 15 years. But no major revisions have happened since 1985, and that's nearly 40 years. The world that calls us to respond to its needs looks very different in 2023 than it did in 1985. So our General Assembly set up a commission to review Article 2. It's been active through 2022 with focus groups and surveys and an open series of Zoom discussions with UUs from all over the country and beyond. And now, after much thoughtful conversation and debate, the Commission is reviewing and revising and will present the final proposal for an initial vote at General Assembly in Pittsburgh this coming June, with a final vote the following year. And maybe some of you have engaged in those discussions. I believe this to be a process that honors our tradition of ongoing reflection and change. It calls us to respond not with a sense of nostalgia that yearns to restore the past as the best and only truth and tradition. Rather, it calls us to live into the Unitarian Universalism of the future, one that holds us in times of great need and ethical, moral, and spiritual crises. In my hopes for our living, creedless tradition, where beliefs aren't set in stone, as well as my hopes for this struggling country and its divided yet profoundly interdependent people, I return to the words of Audre Lorde. We do not have to romanticize our past in order to be aware of how it seeds our present. We do not have to suffer the waste of an amnesia that robs us of the lessons of the past, rather than permits us to read them with pride, as well as deep understanding. May it be so.
Paper.
Here we go. All right. The work of the church depends on us. Generosity of time, wisdom, and financial resources. We invite you to give generously to support the ongoing work of the church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values.
The
We extinguish this flame, but not the truth of the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment, these we carry with us in our hearts until we are together again. Please raise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, 159. This is my song.
I close with the words of Emily Richards. Our work here today is at an end, and our work has just begun. The work of holding one another and the community in love, the work of trusting that we are on the right path, the work of believing that what connects us is stronger than what separates us, the work of engaging in that which makes us whole, the work of deeper understanding and commitment, the work of letting go of that which does not serve us, the work of radical inclusion, the work of collective liberation, the work of this beloved community, a beloved community of which we are all a part, a place where we are welcomed, respected, valued, cherished, a place where we belong. Go in peace. Amen. Blessed be.